Mga Gunita ng Himagsikan by Emilio Aguinaldo.
Who is Emilio Aguinaldo? Emilio Fami Aguinaldo Sr. was born on March 22, 1869 in Cavite, El Viejo, or present-day known as Kawit in Cavite Province. His parents were Carlos Hamir Aguinaldo and Trinidad Fami Aguinaldo, a Tagalog-Chinese mestizo couple who had 8 children and the 7th of whom was Emilio Sr. He attended high school at the Colegio de San Juan de Litran but had to stop in his 4th year because of his father's death. He then took up the responsibility of helping his mother run their farm. At 25, he became Cavite Viejo's first Gobernadorcillo Capitan Municipal. In 1895, he became a Freemason, joining Pellar Lodge No. 203 at Imus, Cavite by the code name Colon. He joined the Katipunan and used the nom de guerre Magdalo. He became the president of the Biak na Bato Republic at Hong Kong Junta and First Philippine Republic. The battles he fought were Philippine Revolution, Spanish-American War, and Philippine-American War. Emilio Aguinaldo died in Quezon on February 6, 1964, from cardiovascular disease. A year before his death, Aguinaldo donated his Kawit mansion and all its contents to the government. It is now under the care of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines and known as the Emilio Aguinaldo Shrine. The original memoirs in Tagalog was prepared by Aguinaldo in his own handwriting between 1928 to 1946. It was at the close of 1963 when Aguinaldo, after much deliberation, decided to publish his memoirs in 1967. Aguinaldo scribbled a lot in his old age between 1928 and 1946. He produces in a longhand the first volume of his memoirs, Mga Gunita Ng Himagsikan 1964, translated from the original Tagalog as Memoirs of the Revolution 1967. It was by Luz Colindrino Buco, the secretary of the Graduate School of Education and faculty member of the University of the East, and published in 1967. In his preface, Aguinaldo says the memoirs were based in a diary he kept, documents he preserved, and family lore gathered from his elders. We do not know whether this diary is extant or whether a promised second volume of the memoirs were fully written out. All we have is an account from his birth and early years ending with the 1897 Treaty of Biak na Bato. The second volume would cover the resumption of the Philippine Revolution against Spain and the Philippine-American War. Aguinaldo wanted to correct history by making reference to the historians' confused accounts on the beginning of the revolution. The memoirs contain a background regarding the two Sangguniang Bayan, namely the Magdalo and the Magdiwang, whom took a big role in claiming the victory of independence for the lalawigan of Cavite against Spain. It was mentioned in the primary source that the two Sangguniang Bayan have a lot of differences in regards to their type, but surely they had one similar aim, which is to claim the victory of independence for our motherland. Aguinaldo stated in the preface of this book why he wrote it: to help our historians fill in the gap of the past and to connect the scattered parts of our history, to preserve the past of our nation for the generations to come, awakening the inherent heroism and nationalistic spirit of the Filipinos against any foreign invaders, that we may preserve our hard-earned freedom. In addition, the book shows as whole the cruelty of the Spaniards, the different types of government under Aguinaldo, and even the struggles of the Filipinos in the attainment of freedom. The chapter 28 of this document was My Bloodiest Fight. Under Aguinaldo's command, the Filipino revolutionaries defeated the Spanish troops in Cavite. The whole province of Cavite was liberated from the Spaniards. Chapter 30, Magdiwang Council reorganized. Cavite was liberated through the efforts of both the Magdiwang and Magdalo. Magdiwang said to be monarchical form, which is headed by King Andres Bonifacio, and Magdalo was republican form, which is headed by President Baldomero Aguinaldo. Chapter 38, My Election to the Presidency. Aguinaldo was at Pasong Santol in Dasmariñas on March 22, 1897. He learned of his election as president of the new revolutionary government. On March 24, 1897, Aguinaldo received news that Bonifacio and his ministers met in a council as passed a resolution declaring null and void the meeting at the Heros. Chapter 42, Military Court. 5 charges were made against the Bonifacio brothers. A military court was created with Colonel Jose Lipana as presiding judge. Chapter 44, Death of the Bonifacio brothers. The Bonifacio brothers were found guilty and sentenced to death. Aguinaldo commuted the sentence to banishment. Generals Peyo del Pilar and Mariano Noriel persuaded Aguinaldo to impose the original sentence. This document discourse about the journey of Emilio Aguinaldo from joining the Katipunan up to the Filipino-American War broke out. August of 1896, when Aguinaldo went to Cavite El Viejo, he told them that his plan to invade the Spaniards failed, and it was his first time to formulate strategies. He told his 2 concejals, J. Candido Traya Tirona and Santiago Dano, of what happened. He told them about the declaration of war, and both said that they need to fight. When the aggression started, Aguinaldo's group promptly decreased. Aguinaldo immediately changed his plan and successfully did it. After the aggression, they were happily greeted by their folks with native decorations. Subsequently, Supremo Andres Bonifacio was given a tribute by the Haring Bayan, which was already planned long ago. After the tribute, the Magdiwang factions visited each other of their areas in preparation for the convention of the 2 factions. The freedom of Cavite can be contributed to the efforts of the 2 factions. And by the way, General Emilio Aguinaldo, before entering the Katipunan, was a Gobernador Silio Capitan Municipal. His position in the government was like of a judge and a governor. It was just then that Santiago Alvarez encouraged him to join the organization. 1896 was the year when the Spaniards found out about the Katipunan, which led to the declaration of war of the Spanish government and series of revolt of the Filipinos. However, during this year, the Revolutionary Society was not yet well equipped with firearms and equipment. Their lack of preparation led to the death of some men and Guillermo Samoy, but the general found a way to get inside, which led to the capture of State House. It was well known in our history books that Emilio Aguinaldo and Andres Bonifacio have their own differences in terms of beliefs, mindset, and especially politics. Andres Bonifacio, also known as the Supremo and Haring Bayan, was the leader of the Revolutionary Society. The KKK was divided into factions, namely Magdalo and Magdiwang. These 2 factions have different principles and officials. Nonetheless, they were under the roof of the KKK. However, Bonifacio favored the Magdiwang faction due to his kinship ties with its leaders and the recognition of his authority compared to the factions led by the Aguinaldos, which was the Magdalo factions. This conflict between 2 factions had its own consequences, and one which was the death of Dr. Jose Rizal. The main arguments of Emilio Aguinaldo is to attempt to wash his hands on the tragic death of Andres Bonifacio. Thus, it is a way of vindicating himself from negative aspersions against him. The document contains historical information about the history of the Filipino ancestors. The document presents how the people of our country had passionately fought back against the Spaniards in order to gain our freedom. In the excerpts of the memoir, Emilio Aguinaldo pointed out a few but critical points that would eventually determine the outcome of the Philippine Revolution. In his first few paragraphs, especially pages 77 to 82, the author emphasized the lack of firearms and ammunition of his troops. Furthermore, the general condemned the killing of fellow Filipinos whom are Filipinos also. For him, this would create a great mess and trouble if they would kill their fellow men. Also, the general gave importance to rules of Teniente Abanderado and the band that marched with them. This signified that a leader has important responsibilities and that through unity, the revolution would be successful. Aguinaldo also pointed out the consequences of having two factions in the society. It resulted in prejudice among the Katipuneros, especially with the Supremo and the General. These memoirs showed how resilient the Filipinos were at the time and how much they sacrificed and fought to gain the independence they wanted so much. It provided what was their military strategy before, how they thought at the time, what was the situation of the Filipinos, and what it was like living and fighting during those dark and trying times. It also offers the readers the idea that in every generation, there is always an enemy or a fight that needs to be won. Emilio Aguinaldo exposes the situations, especially their hardships, which they encountered during their long for independence. It is also showed the two phases of the Katipunan that defined our revolution history. Mga Gunita ng Himagsikan plays a vital role to the grand narrative of Philippine history, as it is the first-hand narrative of the first Philippine Republic president, which offers a different perspective and provides a basis for collaboration of other historical sources. Mga Gunita ng Himagsikan provides a realization that to fight during dark at times and leave hiding because of being colonized by other country is hard. That means in our society today, we must be prepared and brave enough to conquer everything. It also offers a motivation for us to keep on working hard for our dreams. After all, success comes from perseverance and persistence, which are both qualities shown by Filipino revolutionaries. Thus, we should be thankful for them. And through studying this significant event, this helped us to clarify the situations of the Filipino people under the Spanish regime, and it showed that Aguinaldo has the quality of or traits that a president of a revolutionary government should possess.